Madam Clerk, when you're ready, we'll go ahead with a roll call. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I've never done this before.
I want to find out if there's enough people here to pray.
Right, yeah, well, it's that prefrontal thing, frontal lobe, you don't need it. Okay, Mamie's doing the invocation, Jim Martin's doing the pledge. If you don't mind, if you want,
I'm happy to pray.
okay, if you want to join us, please rise.
Thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for this beautiful day. This is a day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Thank you so much. Go with us and help us to make the right decisions for all of Berrien County, for all of the state of Michigan. Thank you so much. Please take care of us and keep us healthy and well. Go with our children. Help us and take care of us. Thank you so much for Michigan, for the state of Michigan, for Berrien County. Go with us and help us to make the right decisions. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge and please remember about our country, our Constitution, and what this country means to everybody. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you both. Now.
Okay. Bell,
Here.
Curran.
Here.
Freeling, Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
Scott,
Present.
Ballrath,
Here.
Werfel. Here. Yarborough,
Present.
Elliott.
Here,
Mr. Chair, you have 11 present, 1 absent.
thank you. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes from last week? If not, who would like to move to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Scott. Is there support? Seconded by Majerick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone who doesn't want to, say aye again. All right, they're approved. Communications, Madam Clerk.
We have that.
Okay. Before we get to the 23 budget, Ben and Doug, we need to adjust our agenda because of the unusual circumstances with the resolution coming out of admin and the bid process that's preceding to that in finance. So if it's okay, I'd like to move committee reports ahead of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Moved by Scott, supported by Martin, to amend the agenda as just stated. Madam Clerk, when you can, just go ahead and do a roll call on this one.
Yep. Curran,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman. Majerick.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ballrath,
Yes.
Werfel. Yes. Yarborough,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
thank you. I think we can do the public hearing and then we'll get to the committee reports and then we'll do the consent agenda. That way Doug and Ben can be on their way. So we need to pause the regular meeting, go into the public hearing for the FY23 budget discussion pursuant to statute. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Scott. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman. Majerick.
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ballrath,
Yes.
Werfel. Yes. Yarborough.
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
thank you. Okay, folks, we are now in public hearing mode.
Mr. Chair, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty. We're going to have Doug and Ben get started on describing the presentation while we wait for Annette to get the document out.
Well, you said they had it all committed to memory anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll bet.
Okay, well,
I was sure hoping we would because I just love reading.
Yeah,
What?
there's a quiz later, so,
Good morning, everyone.
morning.
We'll kind of wing it here, as it were. I don't know whether something got emailed incorrectly or whatever happened, but what I'm providing you with this morning is a summary of the 2023 proposed budget or recommended budget. And I'll just kind of start into that if I can. The 2023 recommended budget, and that would be at the beginning of the book that you have, like page 4, I believe it is.
Excuse me, could you introduce yourself, please, and him too?
Okay, my name is Douglas James. I'm the Financial Services Director for Berrien County. Ben Reynolds, he'd be my assistant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, good morning. We'll start again. Okay, so we're presenting to you at the 2023 budget, a proposed budget for your review and adoption. There will be a resolution that will come through for vote next week on this matter. There we go. That's it. So there we go. Now we got the pages. Okay. Thank you, Annette. We chose not to pick a sunset scene because we all believe there are a few waves out there. I didn't choose the picture with that. It went clear up over the top, but
there you go. That's how you
Okay.
control it, okay?
okay. Thank you very much. Okay, anyway, so we came down with a happy medium on this one. Okay, we're presenting to you today a 2023 budget for primary government for your review and adoption, reflecting revenues and other sources of revenue of just a little over $179 million, expenditures and other uses of $184 million, a little over, and a use of fund balance of $5.3 million. You're going to see at the bottom there, if we're going to go clear down the bottom, net change in the fund balance for the general fund, we have at just, it's basically dead even, $6,800 increase. Special revenue funds are declining, $3,474,000. Capital project fund balance is decreasing $2,424,000. And internal service funds and enterprise funds are going up a little bit. So getting us to the 5.3 million. Okay. Key highlights here I want to address really quickly at the start. This recommended budget does not include the use of any ARPA funds at this time, as far as the funds that have been provided to the federal government for that related to the 29 point some odd million dollars that we received. As further details become available, an amendment to the recommended budget will be submitted for your consideration and adoption. The budget includes the declaration of a delinquent tax surplus of $1,225,000 and is used to support the general fund operations. Also budgeted is a growth in the delinquent tax revolving fund of $1,882,000 from normal operations prior to the declaration of that surplus. Road funds, just real quick, reflect a use of fund balance of $1,785,000, of which $4,428,000 are used to for capital outlay purposes. The other capital expenditures that we would normally see within the capital project funds are $2,424,000. That is covered by a use of fund balance. That's why you saw that declining on that previous slide. The use of special fund balances, excluding the road department, we're using $1,689,000. And I've listed there for you which specific areas are making up the majority of that change. And the general fund, on the basis of what we're presenting to you today, the general fund balance with the declaration of the $1,225,000 and transfer from the delinquent tax surplus. Again, it basically remains flat, and the ending balance is projected to be 33.6% of expenditures. Okay. So let's go ahead and go. This gives you a bird's eye view, as it were, versus the 2021 actuals, the 2022 adopted, and then the 23 recommended. What you're seeing here, if I go to the bottom line, and this is on page 7 of your book, is that the budgeted or the net increase or decrease in fund balance, we are improving $2.3 million from where from the budget we had adopted a year ago for this operating year. Okay. Revenues for primary government, and all my comments are going to be about primary government only here. Revenues for primary government, excluding other financing sources, are budgeted at $152.969 million. That's an increase of $5,776,000 or 3.9% versus the 2022 adopted budget. Property taxes, intergovernmental revenues, and internal service insurance and benefit reimbursements make up the majority share at about 83.9% of the total revenues. You can see the gold colored, you can see the property tax piece down there. It's those 3-4 categories, make up the majority. Property taxes. Property taxes are budgeted to increase $2,308,000 or 4.3%. Okay. Intergovernmental revenues, including revenue sharing, are increasing $991,000, and then the internal service fund reimbursements increased a little over $3 million. Information and details can be found on page 10 or 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So there's a section there for you to be able to read through to give you more insights. Okay. Property taxes themselves the increase is driven by the change in the taxable values. So this chart shows you the change over the course of time. We kind of like to show you what has been going on historically. State equalized values increased $553, almost $554 million, or 5.3%. Taxable values increased by about 4.5%. Millage rates basically remain flat versus the prior year. There's a little tiny bit of Headley in there, but it really has no impact. So this is a part of the resolution that will be coming to you in next week. And it shows the millage rates to be used for the calculation of current taxes and what you would be adopting for 2023. And so it shows the general fund operating millage at 4.7680 mils and walks through each of the separate millage items. If the electors, and I've got this in bold and underlined, but if the electors of Berrien County approve the current county law enforcement and public safety millage that's on the ballot, then the rate will change for that particular millage to 0.45 mils. Currently, we reflect the 0.3496 mils. And the 2023 budget, as presented to you, is based upon the current millage rate. Okay. So, as I said, tax revenues are budgeted at 55.877 million, which is 36.5% of the primary government revenue. That $2.3 million or increase of $2.3 million or 4.3%. You're going to be able to see that the current tax portion of that is $2.215 million increase. Most of that all happens within the general fund. It's just slightly over $2 million. The rest is really not impacted to a great degree. And that because of the way the assessment time occurs and the timing of things, we won't see as much of an impact to those until we get a year down the road. Okay, so that's tax revenue. Intergovernmental revenue is budgeted at 58.267 million or 38% of the revenue. It's increasing just short of $1 million. I will highlight there that the county road fund intergovernmental revenue makes up about 48.8% of the total intergovernmental revenue. Okay, health department is increasing just short, well, it's $824,000 in their intergovernmental. Berrien Bus is increasing. We don't have any ARPA built in there. So overall, we had in 2022 adopted budget, we had $800,000. We don't have anything in there today for 2023. And then we've got a grant that is ending, making up a little bit too. The revenues, which again, I'm only highlighting the three large categories here that make up the majority of it. Other revenues, including internal service benefits, are 21.3 million, 13% of the total revenue. MMRMA reimbursement or refund is included in the budget for $1 million. That was included in the 22 budget as well. Healthcare internal service funds are budgeted at just about 18.2 million, which is an increase of $2.1 million. I'm going to round here, and is really related to benefit reimbursements coming from county employees and the county. Well, I guess it's employer and employee contributions. Okay. Expenditures overall for primary government, excluding the items that move back and forth, and I'm excluding restitution as well because that kind of comes in and goes out, is budgeted for 2023 or recommended at $158.3 million. That's $3.48 million or 2.2% above the 2022 adopted budget. Salaries and wages, benefit costs, road construction costs, and internal service benefits and professional contractual services make up a majority of the cost, which is about 81%. Personnel costs increased about $906,000. You can go down the list here and you can see salaries and wages over, and if you go over to the right, I don't have a highlighter here, but over to the right, you're going to see an increase of $2.8 million in salaries and wages. But benefit costs offset a great deal of that. They go down $1.9 million. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, we have road construction material costs going down. We have capital outlay going up. We have internal service benefit costs going up. Okay? If you want to see more information about personnel costs or non-personnel costs, you can, they're in the book. There's more information as well. Personnel expenses are budgeted at 79.317 million, or 50% basically of the 23 budget. We separate between salaries and wages, which is the blue, and the benefit cost, which is the gold or orange, I guess it is. And you can see the trend over time. So in the 23 budget, we have budgeted in the 23 budget for 812.7 equivalent employees, full-time equivalent employees. That's an increase of 7.1 from the 2022 budget and 23.3 from the 2021 budget. Okay, so changes in personnel are shown here. You can see, based upon the different functional areas, the change over the course of time. Also, if you go to page 130 through 133 in the book, it gets into a lot more detail. Okay. So we expect our overall head count to increase 7, basically. Personnel expenses, as I said, we're going up $906,000 or 1.2%. However, if you get into the salaries and wage piece, you're going to see that salaries and wages go up $2.8 million or 5.7% overall. And portion of that has to do with the compensation changes related to the salary study implementation and additional employees that are noted on the FTE chart. Benefit costs are decreasing $1,894,000. It's driven by OPEB healthcare insurance funded levels, accounting for a decrease of $3.6 million in benefit costs. And that's partially offset by increases for health insurance and pension. So what we see here is that over the course of time, we've seen the pension fund balance, as it were, the funded portion continues to increase. The question is, where is it now given the current market? I have the same question around OPEB. And if I were going to highlight any concern that I would have going forward, it's the fact that we may become less funded based upon the market conditions at a lower funding rate, requiring additional contributions. So this chart shows you where we're at with OPEB healthcare. We're basically at the end of 2021, we were 99% funded. We saw huge growth. I suspect, but I can't confirm that I can confirm we have seen a slide since then. However, our assumptions are based upon this 99% funding and the actuarial calculations. Okay. So that's kind of the overall conditions. General fund. The general fund reflects a source of funds of 68.195 million and a use of funds of 68.188 million, with a very small increase in fund balance. That's much different than we were when we adopted the 2022 budget, as well as the 2022 amended budget, where we had to increase the appropriated spending. Okay. General fund. This is just a list of items worth noting for the general fund. I'll just hit on a couple of them because we've talked about some of this already. Is that 2023, we're expecting 65.463 and cross out the 5. I just saw a typo, million. Okay. Which is an increase of $1.6 million versus the 22 adopted. Again, I talked about taxes very briefly earlier, the fact that we're seeing just a little over $2 million increase because of taxes. Intergovernmental revenues decreased just a little bit. Charges for services decreased 548,000. You can see why. I've listed there that the trial court costs decreased 445,000, and commissary, which has been moved out of the general fund to a separate enterprise fund after the 2022 adoption, makes up $300,000. Okay. We're seeing some indirect cost increases, and then other revenues include a draw of excess reserve from MMRMA to provide $1 million. All that said, we are basically increasing at the revenue level. I'm sorry, at the tax level, you know, in a decent manner, but we lose a lot of momentum by the time we get down to total revenues. Expenditures show a use of, a budget of 58.574 million. I've gone through here and listed for you different drivers here. The one item that I would talk about just very quickly would be the benefit cost decrease, and that fact that OPEB is making up about $1,957,000 favorable impact to the general fund. Okay. Also, please note that fuel is budgeted based upon the federal cost per gallon projected for 2023. We all are seeing the fuel prices go all over the place, so we may be, obviously, it's got a possibility of being low based upon the current trend. We also, and we had reported this earlier, we see cost increases around health services, medical examiner. We included for the first time a Stanley Convergent contract for jail security maintenance, as well as body cameras. I kind of talk about some other items here. If you have any, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, but I'm just going to kind of keep it rolling. Please note that contingency is budgeted at $1 million. Okay, for the 2023 budget, which is the same as we adopted last year. And on page 129, a list of outside appropriations to outside agencies is listed, as well as on page 29 through 31, a whole list of capital and maintenance projects that they want to do. Okay. Questions on that so far?
Any questions for Doug?
Okay, I'll make it short. Try to make it short. Special revenue funds for 23. You can see up there, we are expecting a decrease in the overall fund balances of 3.474 million. On the following tab, or on the following page, I try to list for you the different major funds and how they are impacted. I would bring to your attention the fact that the Friend of the Court Fund will be at a projected 26 days of available fund balance. That's getting pretty low. We project $308,000 is where they will be standing at the end of 2023, based upon what we have available to us right now. The health department will also eat into their fund balance to fund some capital expenditures. 911 will also, their fund balance will decrease, and I've listed a capital expenditures for you in the book. The public safety funds are also decreasing, or have a use of fund balance of 185,000. It does, again, as I said, it does not include the current millage proposal. And I just kind of walk through a couple other funds there. It's all basically in the book for you. And the other one I would highlight here would be Child Care Fund. And the Child Care Fund, we do have some concerns about because they, although they are only going to have revenues exceed expenditures by a couple $1,000s, the fund balance is getting substantially, it's declined in the course of 2022 to the extent that I'm becoming uncomfortable. And it's recommended that if in the event that unexpended general funds become available, that we go ahead and reappropriate some of that in 22 to assist that. Capital projects are going to be $2,423,000 is what we've built into the budget. It's all funded by the use of fund balance. Fund balance at the end of the year, you're going to see here, is at $221,000. It's an all-time low, that to my knowledge. Okay, so we are using fund balance to fund those expenditures. And I've thrown a couple highlights here, which I've basically noted on the other. If there are any emergency or unplanned purchases that need to occur, we will need other outside sources, outside the capital project funds, or we will need to request cancellation of other spending. That's where we're at. Okay. And none of the facility study is included in here. Okay. Two more. Okay. Internal service funds are budgeted to increase $143,000. In 2022, there is a contribution included in the amended budget of $3.4 million to assist with the healthcare internal service fund. 2.1 million of that's coming out of the delinquent tax revolving, and then there's a portion coming out of the general fund itself. If we don't need it, we won't move it, but it has been adopted in that way. Property and liability insurance, again, we've got $1 million being drawn out of there to support the general fund, as we have in the past. Enterprise funds, net position increases $422,000. Okay. However, we have $1,225,000 again coming out of the delinquent tax revolving fund. I've done a calculation here for you because I know that you're very sensitive. Well, we're all sensitive to that delinquent tax revolving fund balance. We estimate at the end of 22, we're going to have almost $30 million of net position there. We estimate that about $1,381,000 is available for immediate use. The rest is tied up either as advances to other funds, reserve for note payments, for annual borrowing, or general fund expenditures per board policy. And I'm showing you there how we've calculated that. Okay, so we have $1,381,000 that we would assume that we would declare as excess. And we are asking then to transfer about $1,225,000 of that. Okay. So what we're giving you now is a proposed budget of revenues of $153.9 million, expenditures of $159.3 million, and a use of fund balance of $5,325,000. Okay, any question?
questions for Doug or Ben? Yes, sir.
We're already, go back. Oh, one page.
Yes.
We're already at 5,325,000, 5,326,000. Taking that out of fund balance. And that's how, taking it out of fund balance is how we're balancing the budget.
Overall, for all. funds,
Overall.
Yes, Yes, sir.
Projected. That does not include contingencies over, all we had in contingency was $1 million, correct?
In the general fund
We have
contingency.
found that to be completely erroneous this year. This next year, it's, because we had, remember, we had to transfer into
Right.
contingency, okay?
Correct, correct.
We don't know what the fuel's gonna be like, we don't know what the economy is gonna be like, okay? The problem that I have is this budget being at 5,326,000 in the negative. We haven't even figured in yet if we had to implement the full salary study. That would be another thing on wages and benefits that would be in here, that which would increase that. Is that correct? Or not?
No, the salary study, as we know it, as it was adopted, is in there.
The full salary study. All the people that we didn't take care of.
Only what's been approved.
Only what's been approved.
That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, what about the other ones? If this other stuff doesn't get approved, or if it does get approved, then that's gonna take that to a different figure of even more. That's what I'm concerned with.
So the board has not taken a position on any additional wage increases. We have brought forward a budget that directly aligns with what the board has governed, which is the wage implementation as it was laid out in your authorizing resolution. Any additional wage changes, should the board wish to do that, it would have to be communicated, it would have to be told to us how much cash is needed. We have not made any assumptions on additional wage adjustments outside of what was approved in the union contracts and in the wage implementation, the wage study implementation. Further, I just want to make clear, the net change in fund balance, that's across all funds.
Correct.
So to assume that we're drawing down fund balance, general fund balance by 5.3 is not a correct assumption. How much are we drawing down general fund balance? None.
But, I'm gonna but there's $1,225,000 coming from declared surplus from the delinquent tax revolving. That's a part of that, which we typically have every year. Sorry.
Thank you. But to your point, sir, I'm just wanting to make clear to all of you. The general fund balance is not being drawn down. There is no assumption on a drawdown of fund balance. The 5.3 represents all funds.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Anything from the assembled multitudes out here in the audience, since this is a public hearing? All right, is there a motion to conclude the public hearing and resume the regular session? Moved by Werfel, supported by Harrison. All those in
No,
favor? You gotta do a
roll call.
roll on that? All right, well, then any discussion
Mr.
here,
Chairman,
sir?
I said this at the budget workshop. I'm just going to restate it. Ben and Doug, just an absolute tremendous amount of time goes in to the development of this budget document. These two are doing a huge heavy lift every year and getting this in front of you, getting it ready for the adoption later in the next couple of weeks. So big thank you to the two of them.
Indeed. If there's no discussion, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majeri.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Ballrath.
Yes.
Werfel.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Curran.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas.
thank you. We are back in regular session. And since we have juggled things a little bit, to do committee reports before we do the consent calendar. We'll get into that. Finance is first, Mr. Vice Chair.
Happy to do that. I'll be brief. I'll be brief. Our administrator and chair were in just briefly to see us and spoke about changes in the some contract needs that were coming with change of personnel in the public defender's office. Thank you. And so then they had to hustle down to admin, and I'm sure that they'll give that report. We had the issue that we were dealing with this morning in the committee of the whole report. Debbie Jasper was there with accounts payable, and we opened the bid. There was only actually one bid for the fuel that showed up that was sent to 5 bidders, and there was only one bid that showed up. So we opened that bid and then turned it over to the department so that they can preview it. And so the bid that was opened was, I'm sure you guys have been briefed on it at admin, and you guys will give that, but that is going to be in front of you at this point in time, as was discussed at the committee of the whole. And we had, we went through some waiver requests. We had just the supplement that the road department uses for de-icing the road, kind of from a single source supplier came up. We had the design from, as we discussed before, for the linear parks, the 1 mile, we have 1 mile of additional linear parks. And that was going to, we keep balancing back and forth between Whiteman and Abbott March on that. And so that, that went out, that went out to, as a waiver so that it didn't have to be bid. And then we had, help me out on CFR funding. CFR stands for, the CFR funding goes to a single source. That was single sourced and has been done for the same one for years and years. And so the CFR was.
It was the allocation, I think.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
so
I'm gonna holler at Doug.
at any rate.
He knows the acronym.
I'm sorry about the acronym. So at any rate, we took care of the waivers. And then Paul Jancha did follow up with us from the public defender's office after he had been, and I'm sure that Jim will report out on that. But the only thing that was decided in finance is that they're going to, they would like to, they're negotiating the contract to stay in the current facility that they are. They're negotiating that contract for 3 years. And it was suggested they didn't want to move from that facility. There have been updates that have been made in that facility that they want to stay there with. And so the suggestion came out of finance that they put in for a waiver request so that they can stay there rather to make sure there's a paperwork trail for future board work so that we know what's been done. So they'll be coming to us with a waiver on that. And Ezra, was there anything else that we discussed?
We approved our minutes and paid bills.
There you go.
Spent money.
Or payables, took care of that. So I think that's all, Mr. Chair.
Any questions for finance? All right, Mr. Admin Chair, you're on.
Thank you, Mac. We had 2 Pauls in to see us this morning, Sheriff Paul and Public Defender Paul. And John touched on Public Defender Paul, talking to us about the lease at the building that they're in. If you recall, they were at Church Street, moved out to the building they're in now. They expanded from within that building. So we actually have 2 leases, or the Public Defender's Office has 2 leases now. And Paul's going to combine those into one lease to cover the entire space occupied by Public Defender. And the lease is about $183,000. He also talked to us about the Child Protective Proceedings contract. It's a 1-year contract. It's just a 2% increase. So it's going from $408,000 to $416,000. And there are 9 attorneys on that contract. Then Sheriff Paul Bailey was in to see us, and Commissioner Volrath is going to report out on that.
Yes, Sheriff Bailey, and was in with us was our Chief Deputy Robert Boyce.
Thanks, Dave. Let's see, Brian and Matt came in to see us. Brian talked to us about a little bit about what's going on animal control. Ashley wants to change the way the dog licenses are, the process for dog licenses. And Brian wants to hire a consultant to work with Ashley. You know, especially now at the beginning, you know, she's learning the ropes. It'd be good to have someone assist her with best practices and whatnot. And did you want to comment further on that, Brian?
Yeah, so we're working on a contract statement now. My intent is to have the consultants agreement in front of admin over the next couple of weeks. They would then come out of admin with an authorizing resolution for the full board. The consultant that we're looking at was brought to the board's attention through the Michigan Association of Counties. Commissioner Freeling actually directed me to direct contact with this person. She's nationally recognized for a variety of kennels across the state. And Ashley's met with her a couple of times. I'll have more information in front of admin over the next couple of weeks. And then I'll also be working to secure time for the Friends Group to come and talk with you all on their engagement with animal control and the money that they're pumping into our operation.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
And that kind of segues into the next part about the Friends of Animal Control with the fencing for the dog walking and their sound deadening material in the kennels. We have a couple of resolutions. The one resolution that we did today, the results are, the lowest bidder is Cirrus, guaranteed the price of $3.99 per gallon for unleaded and $4.11.5 per gallon for Benton Harbor, Baroda, Three Oaks, and Bakertown garages. For diesel fuel, and $4.21.5 per gallon for Waterville and Eau Claire. So that's what those came up with. That's the resolution that's in our packet to be approved today. Any questions? 309, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, we have a second resolution that's coming next time we get together. It ends in 400, and it's basically a traffic control order changing the stop signs at the intersection of Brownway Road and Russell Road. Right now, the stop sign is for Russell Road. It's going to be moved from Russell Road to Brownway Road. So Brownway Road will now stop. The other road will continue on. They're just flip-flopping stop signs. So that will be coming before you next time we get together. And that is our report.
Questions for admin? Okay, Mr. Chair, of Personnel and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also met this morning. We spent the bulk of our time in our meeting going through the bylaws. So a very exciting part of our meeting. And so we have some recommendations from administration, and then our committee members will be going back through them individually. And then we'll present some changes for your consideration at a later date. We also had a public defender come in, talk a little bit about the 3 areas of attention, and appreciated that briefing. Our administrator came in, talked about animal control, and that we're very much appreciative of the efforts being made by the Sheriff's Department as well as the staff out at Animal Control. A clarification on tuition reimbursement. This will be a last dollar that's on our agenda today for approval. This is a last dollar policy. And so it's, we would expect our employees to use any grants or benefits from the state, federal, or local colleges first, and then present to us upon successful completion of a class, their paid receipt as well as their grades. And so we would not expect much activity until May, but we'll go through that, set that up for the approval process. It's approval prior to authorization. So ahead of each of the classes, we'll get approval. Had our corporate attorney come in, talk about a few personnel issues, and we'll be dealing with some of those later on. And then also had a discussion about continuing efforts as far as wage and benefits in the coming months. And I think, gentlemen, does that cover everything?
That's good.
I think that covers it.
Any questions for personnel? All right, we'll now go to public comments limited to the resolutions. And that will include, excuse me, the added one that ends in 399, the one that finance and admin worked on today. Sir, you had a comment about resolutions? Yes, sir.
Counselor, you know where I'm from, Hager. Now, the one that you were talking about, I want to know why.
Excuse me. Need to speak up with the microphone and tell your name.
I don't think you raise your hand. Okay, that, you mentioned the amount of gasoline, okay, $3.09 for unleaded, and then $4.11 for a gallon of diesel. And then at the end here, which you forgot to mention, with $4.21 per gallon for diesel, going to Waterloo and Eau Claire. Now, I'd like to know why it's 10 cents more.
They're, answer that very, very quickly. It's all about delivery. There's a 1,000-gallon tank at Watervliet, 1,000-gallon tank at Eau Claire. The other ones are 8,000-gallon tanks. So it's a matter of convenience for the deliverer, and they're charging more to deliver to a smaller tank.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peltzer. Anyone else have any questions at this point, limited to resolutions on the agenda, including the added resolution that Mr. Peltzer was just asking about? All right, consent calendar then is ripe for board action. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar, including the added resolution?
So moved.
The hand movement was there, but nothing audible, so we'll give it to Scott, seconded by Kern. And it's like an auction. Anyway, with that, any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Najarick,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Walrat,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas.
thank you. Before we get to commissioner reports, there's a matter coming out of the Finance Committee regarding the reappointment of Mr. Robert Cultis. Is that the pronunciation? Okay. To the Trust Investment Advisory Committee for a 3-year term expiring 6/7 of 25, which at this point isn't quite 3 years, but it's there now. Is the committee moving that forward today?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so you're moving, John moves,
I'll
Ezra
support it.
supports. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, would you note the appointment of Mr. Cultus? Okay, then we'll get to commissioner reports. Back on track for the rest of the agenda. John?
No report.
I attended the meeting of the Health Board. You'll have 2 resolutions coming, I think on the 17th. The first is an update to the master contract with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And then the second is the repayment of unspent COVID dollars. This is through no fault of Bering County. The state provided excess dollars to all the local health departments. And so it went unspent and now they're asking for it returned. So we'll send back about 750,000 and then in turn in January, they'll send out another 300 and some thousand. That's just the way things work at times, I guess. Since our last meeting, I attended the community grand rounds provided by the local health system, and then also the CTE event at Lake Michigan College. We were well represented from our various departments, and it was really good to see a lot of students interested in what our staff have to say and offer. Then I also attended the groundbreaking for Countryside Charter School and was pressed into making a few comments by the organizer. And that would conclude my report.
No report.
No report. Report.
No report, but I would note, go blue.
We won in the tunnel.
Tell after those things you get.
No report.
I attended the land bank, and it was sad that no one else from the board wants to see what's happening on the land bank. And due to the next thing, because that I have to say is, by the next board meeting, we'll have a new elected board. And someone's gonna have to fill my position on the land bank. So it's a lovely thing. A lot of the economic development put a lot of work into the land bank. Katie Montoya, Kim Fedison, they all do, and our treasurer's in charge of it. And someone needs to be familiar with it and get familiar with the land bank. It's a well worthwhile situation that we have here in Berrien County.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything to report?
No, sir.
All right, general public comments are in order at this point. Anything under the sun in 2 minutes or less, name and town, name and town. Anyone wish to be heard? You look familiar, sir.
Counselor Hager Township. When you guys give your reports, your department heads or whatever you're called, and then you ask the rest of the people there where they have something to say. I suggest you ask the people that are sitting over here. I go to like the St. Joe Commission meeting down there when they got the speaker like this up here. They'll ask, you guys get a chance to say it, and then they'll ask the audience if you've got any questions. A lot of times these guys leave, and then we have to wait till the end, right, to say and ask a question. Now, what am I going to ask a question? That guy's already gone. I thought maybe if you're rewriting the laws or something, bylaws, put that in there. Also, as on your work on the bylaws, 2 minutes ain't enough. I suggest you jack it up to 3. Okay, put it in there. But most of the other city commissions have 3 or 4 minutes. You guys are 2 minutes. You're a minute short. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? All right, if not, we'll go to other business. Does anyone have any?
Mr. Chair,
Sir,
I'd just like to make a comment on the bylaws committee. That has been discussed many times about increasing the time limit from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. I'm not going to be here, but my suggestion would be to keep it at 2 minutes because I haven't found a person yet that was unable to say what they needed to say in 2 minutes.
thank you. On that note, any other business? Announcements and reminders, Veterans Day, next Friday, we're closed. Of course, we're closed for Thanksgiving and the day after. And I think that's it. So we'll get together next Thursday at 8:35. Thank you.